Hey everyone, Mo here, and before the video begins, I just want to let you guys know that my schedule has opened up for me to do coaching again. So if you're interested in private one-on-one coaching for me to help you, whether you're a newer player and you want to excel at the game very quickly and learn the fundamentals without developing any bad habits early, or if you're an experienced player who's already maybe platinum or diamond in your top 1%, but you need some help filling in the gap to get you to that 0.01%, to make you just some of the best, then hit me up on Discord and I can get you in some private one-on-one coaching lessons to help you polish up any skills you want to refine and help you learn all of the secrets to becoming a top player. That's it. I hope you enjoy the video. Hey everybody, Mo here, and today I'm bringing you guys another video. So not quite Meta Monday. I didn't do Meta Monday yesterday because I knew we were getting this huge patch today. With new updates. Actually, it was supposed to be today, so I didn't do it Meta Monday on Monday because I figured everything was going to change today anyways when we got the patch on Wednesday. We actually got the patch a day early, but I was planned for this, to make this video today and kind of get you guys an idea of like what's changing and then like what the meta could be. And I didn't really see a sense on making a meta Monday when we're just gonna have a whole bunch of like huge amount. I think it's like 30 plus changes or something like that, like a huge amount of changes here. So that's what I'm going to do today is I'm going over the patch notes, kind of giving you my idea of what it really means as far as like what decks are actually affected, how many cards are like super affected, if any buffs or nerfs like actually matter, or should have an overarching matter, and then we'll go through, look at the skin, stuff like that. But before we get into the patch notes, I wanted to remind you guys that 68% of the people that watch my videos aren't actually subscribed to me, so if you guys can do me a huge favor and click that subscriber button, I'd really appreciate it. I know my Meta Mondays and these like patch rundown videos are the ones that do the best on my channel, so if you're coming back every week to watch the Meta Monday anyways, and you like the competitive content, I just put out a deck guide on TF Nami, an extremely insane deck. If you like all that type of content, make sure to subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss whenever I post a video. By the way, for those of you that watched that Nami video, I started that video at 240 LP. I'm currently at 600 LP after another day. I did one more day of climbing, and I went up to that. I'm at 600 right now, so I'm only 100 LP away. I think I have a 90% win rate over my last 20 games. And the deck's super broken. So if you missed out on that deck guide, make sure to go watch it because I know what I'm talking about. Deck's broke. All right, so let's get right into it. Patch 3.1, or I guess 3.10.0. Cards updates. So here's a look at each of the card updates coming for this patch. We'll go over all that, but first let's get into the system changes. So Scout has been removed as a generatable keyword. This means things like Arsenal, Hex Core upgrade, like for Victor and Pantheon, essentially, and Acceleration Gate, which is the J spell, if you didn't know. Basically, anything that could grant a random keyword or anything that gains a random keyword, you can no longer get Scout. This basically is to nerf things like Pantheon and Arsenal, especially since they're buffing Arsenal anyways. I think the main goal of this was to nerf Victor and Pantheon, where you basically this like really big Scout elusive overwhelm Scout type keyword champion and just like OTK people out of nowhere for zero reason. They kind of removed it. There are other keywords that are not generatable or like deep. The deep keyword you can't get, but also like double attack. For everyone knows double attack is a keyword in this game, but you can't like generate it randomly. That's why you've never seen a Pantheon with double attack or an Arsenal with double attack. Your Victors never roll double attack. They always just start gaining impact after they've gained every gainable keyword. So now you can no longer gain Scout, which is a buff to every other keyword. Like it's a buff to like lifesteal, it's a buff to elusive, it's a buff to overwhelm, because now you have a higher chance of rolling those. So like if you're against aggro, you really want to roll a lifesteal on your Victor, you have a higher chance now of rolling lifesteal. If you're against an elusive deck and you really need to have an elusive blocker, you have a higher chance of rolling that. But you have a 0% chance now of getting this Scout keyword to kind of OTK your opponent out of nowhere. So that's cool. Kind of explain it here. It's important to have a mix of keywords, but Scout outperforms as a generatable keyword. That's such a hard word to say. So they removed it. The next thing is card update changes, like kind of system changes that they talked about the last patch, was copied spells now count as played. So this means things like Jace, how Jace would copy the spells. Karma obviously would copy spells. Originally, those copied spells didn't count as played, so they wouldn't trigger things like Lux Laser, Ezreal triggers. Anything that had to do with a play trigger wasn't getting affected by these copied spells. Well, now they will. So if you play, like, Jace Lux is a really big deck, and you have a Jason play, a leveled Jace, and you play a 6-mana spell, previously, you would have the 6-mana spell would go on the stack, Jace would copy it, so you would have, let's say, like Shock Blast. You'd have 2 Shock Blasts on the stack, but you would only get one laser from Lux. Now, because the copied Shock Blast will count as being played, you will get 2 Lux lasers. So this is a really big buff, and really big. It's really nice because it's extremely consistent now. And there's not really any confusion about it, but it is a really big buff to things like Karma, Lux, Ezreal, stuff like that. Or really just like Lux and Ezreal are the biggest things that gain buffs from it. So now that we've gone through the system changes here, let's actually get into the cards. I'm going to go kind of fast because, again, there's like over 30 cards changed, and I don't want this video to be 50 minutes long. So I'm just going to kind of go over what the changes was, say like kind of how relevant, how not relevant they'll be, and then give like an overarching idea of like what decks could come back, what decks are kind of gone at the end of the meta. So I'm going to get a drink, and then we will wrap God through all of these changes. So, Ashe now counts power reduction on units that already have 0 power. So previously, the last patch, they buffed Ashe to say, Ashe used to say, when you frostbite 4 enemies, level me up. They changed her and buffed her to say, when you've reduced enemies' powers to 0 4 times, level me up. So this would mean that now, like, Troll Chant will level up Ashe. Quicksand would level up Ashe. Things like those effects that aren't actual frostbites, but you're still removing your opponent's power to 0, so it's like pseudo frostbite. Well, now they're buffing it again. It's kind of a bug fix, but mostly just a buff here, where it says if you reduce someone's power to 0 and it's already 0, it still counts as an Ashe level up. So if you like double frostbite something or Troll Chant attack with Ashe, that'll count as an additional level up, whereas previously it wouldn't. Bard, it says now counts units that buff their own stats. So they buffed Bard here, meaning things like what's a good example for this? Like, let's say the 1-mana Shadow Isle follower, that's like a 1-mana 1/2 fearsome, when the Sentinels, right? When you kill an enemy with a spell, level me up. Or when you kill an enemy with a spell, I gain +2/+1. That +2/+1 previously did not count for Bard. But now it will count for Bard. Previously, it was just whenever you would play a card or a spell, and that would give other things buffs. Now cards that buff themselves also count for Bard. Ezreal got nerfed, increased from 6 targets up to 8. This probably has more to do with the system changes now that the copied spells will deal extra damage for Ezreal level up. They just want to balance it out. Hecarim buff. So Hecarim used to say, ephemeral allies have +3/+0, like while he was on the field. Now it says, when I level up, grant ephemeral allies everywhere +3/+0. So this is a one-time effect. Just whenever your first Hecarim levels, or like when you play him and he's leveled, or when he levels up, he will permanently grant all ephemeral allies everywhere +3/+0 for the rest of the game, whether he's alive, whether he's dead, whether you draw another copy or not. Like Shark Chariots, for example. Shark Chariots will all have +3/+0 for the rest of the game everywhere. Stuff like that. Pretty nice buff. I don't know if it'll be enough to bring Hecarim in the meta, but maybe paired with Callista, which we'll see down here in a minute, could be. I know Prodigy has been having a pretty okay success with Hecarim, so I would not be surprised in the slightest if Hecarim ephemeral decks made a comeback, but I would not bet on it. Aurelia gets a tune. So Aurelia got nerfed because Blade Dance went up to 2 mana. 2 mana is kind of a lot, made the deck pretty unplayable, or at least not unplayable, but not very good. It was essentially only played to counter like Mono Targon and Thralls, like control decks. But now they gave Aurelia a tune, so you can actually play this champion before turn like 5, and it'd be useful. Before, if you could never really slam Aurelia on 3 or 4, because you would play Aurelia on 3 or 4, and then you would have to play the Flawless Duet, and Flawless Duet would take all of your mana, and you would have 0 mana to protect your Aurelia or protect really anything. But now she has a tune, so it makes it easier to play early turns before like turn 5. Callista, they flipped her stats around from being a 4-3 to a 3-4. Basically, Callista is something that wants to live to see things die, so having it have 3 HP made it so she was pretty hard to keep alive because she would die really easy. I love this change for Shin. So Shin went from saying, I've seen allies gain barrier 4+ times to I've seen allies gain barrier 5+ times, but he gained barrier and he counts himself. So it basically everything is the same except Shin got barrier. That's the only difference. He'll still need to see 4 other allies get barrier because him getting barrier is just a free one. So he automatically starts at 1 out of 5. So the only change here is Shin got barrier, and really cool. Really, I like that. Might be a little broken actually, not gonna lie, but it's really good at least. All right, so that's it for the champion changes. Let's go to the follower spells and landmarks. So Aftershock, 4 mana down to 3 mana. Starts to look like a buff, and then you realize it can only deal damage to a unit or a landmark. So originally, this was a typo where it said it can only deal 3 damage to followers or a landmark, but it can in fact kill champions, so that's good, and then it destroys landmarks. So they took away the burn aspect of it. You can no longer deal face damage, so rest in peace burn decks. They were already barely holding on, not really existent, but with this taken out of the pool, burn decks really don't exist anymore. So rest in peace mono burn. Understand deck was degenerate, but you know, is what it is. But this deck's a really good removal spell. This probably replaces all of the Caitlyn, what is it? The like Caitlyn spell that's like deal 2, plant 2 flash bombs at 3 mana, and then it just turns into, you know, play Aftershock, or it could replace like Scorch Earth, and then you start playing Guillotine, something like that. Because it's 3 mana, so it fits Tri-Beam decks really well, being at 3 mana now, and it's a really good removal spell, being that, you know, 3 mana deal 3 damage to any unit, including champions, is really fucking good. There's no drawback at all. Sounds pretty broken to me. So very good card. We'll still see play. Rest in peace, burn. Avatar of the Tides got +1 HP. Still not really playable. Hearthguard went back from a 5-5 to a 5-6. If you ever played in beta and you're a LoR boomer like me, you'll remember Hearthguard used to be a 5-mana 5-6. Riot realized that 5-mana 5-6s were broken, nerfed every 5-mana 5-6, and then slowly they've made 5-mana 5-6 okay again. Like, I think Marshall is back to 5-mana 5-6. I think, like, we have multiple 5-mana. We have the Targo, the Ravoons of 5-mana 5-6. So 5-mana 5-6 is pretty okay now. Plus, Freljord's a pretty shit region, so I went ahead and give it back. Babbling Beard, same idea, slight buff. Freljord midrange just like sucks ass. So if you see here, there's a lot of Freljord buffs, so we'll go over it at the end. Yeah, we got Babbling Beard, Hearthguard, and Ash buffs. So Freljord midrange, pretty solid. There's also some other Freljord midrange buffs in here. So Blighted Caretaker, so revived, they said reverting a previous nerf to give Slay/Sacrifice archetypes a bit more power. Slay decks were pretty dead at the moment. Like, when was the last time you saw Nasus Thresh? When was the last time you really saw Nasus, period? Bakai Reaper used to be insane card, and I don't even know if any of you Zoomers know who Bakai Reaper is. So pretty cool to see. Excited. They already like reverted Nasus change last patch. Now they reverted Caretaker change. So all we need is like the Escaped Abomination to get 1 more HP back, and we basically have old Thresh Nasus, and the deck's pretty sick. Bright Steel Protector, this is a huge nerf. Went from a 3-2 to a 2-1. Demacia was really nuts when it curved out. The stat line was just too big. Giving barrier to something. Barrier is an insane keyword. It essentially means you just get a free kill on anything when you're a challenger. Or you force your opponent to 2-for-1 themselves. So tacking that onto a really nice like fearsome blocker, high pressure stat line like 3-2 is really big. Even making it a 3-1 would have been fine, but a 2-1 is like a really big nerf. Kimberborn Dragon went from a 4-3 to a 4-4. Yeah, they just wanted, you know, Dragon more cost effective. 4 mana 4-3 is pretty shit. 4 mana 4-4 is fine, especially when it like kills one of your own units usually. So makes the curve of into Cameron Dragon pretty good. Chief Knack Attack. It went from a 3 mana 3-3 to a 3 mana 2-4. So it made it so it can survive removal, because this is supposed to be a like an engine to these transform archetypes, but at 3 HP it died to too much, so they made it a 2/4, because you don't really care about attack, because this thing's not attacking anyways. You basically just want it to stay alive so your transforms units can get big. So it used to say, when an ally transforms, fully heal it and give it +1/+1, to when an ally transforms, fully heal it, it grants it +1/+1 and impact. So essentially they just made it so it dies left often, and now it gives impact. So pretty excited. I hope that transform archetype becomes a thing. I know that when he first came out, the deck I made day one was a like transform like PNZ timelines deck with this, like PNZ Bandle City timelines, because timelines says when you play a unit, transform it into something else. So it worked with Chief Knack Attack. It was really fun, created a lot of memes. So hopefully we get something a little bit more better with this, and that'd be pretty cool. Crumble buff. Crumble went to 5 mana to 4 mana. You know, the card sucks, so making it 4 mana is good. Disintegrate now doesn't work on barriers or tough units. The unit has to actually take 1 or more point of damage. It says right here, it takes 1 or more damage, then it kills it. For those that didn't know, previously, if your unit had barrier and I went to go Vile Feast it and then Disintegrate, it would still die, even though the unit didn't actually take damage and the damage was prevented by barrier. The unit would still die to Disintegrate. And same with Tough. If you were to Vile Feast the Tough unit, even though the Tough unit didn't actually take damage, it wasn't damaged or anything, it would still die to Disintegrate. So they changed it so that no longer happens, and it's a lot more intuitive. Ember Monk, instead of being a 4 mana 3/3, it went to a 3 mana 2/3. So it became cheaper, but lost 1 attack. Was whatever. Probably not going to see too much play. Pharaoh's Financial went from a 2/2 to a 2/1. This is really good. This card gives you insane value already, so making it die to 1-drops and die to Vile Feast Whale, stuff like that, really good. Gleaming Lantern is a pretty big nerf, went from a 3/3 to a 3/2. This is really big because it's a lot easier to actually kill the Gleaming Lantern now, whereas previously you would just like slam Gleaming Lantern on 3 and very few decks could actually deal with it. It was essentially either you dealt with it or you could not. Now that at 2 HP, there's going to be more decks that fall into that I can deal with it category. Even things like Ebb and Flow deal with it. Now Mystic Shot deals with it. 2/1 Challenger deals with it. There's a lot of stuff like, obviously Bird, your 1-drop Challenger, Fleet Feather Tracker deals with it. Your 3 mana 2/4 deals with it. So there's a lot of things that can actually deal with it at 2 HP now. It's essentially just like Draven, like how Draven it also dies to TF yellow card probably. It'll probably be the biggest thing you have on turn 4. So if your opponent has first priority on turn 4 with Twisted Fate, they can just go open Twisted Fate Gold card, kills the Gleaming Lantern, and you don't get to use it on that turn. So pretty cool. Hothead went from a 4/2 to a 3/3. It's a unit that needs to attack, so give it more HP so it lives long enough to attack. Inspiring Marshal went from a 4/5 to a 5/6. Doesn't really matter. The main issue with Inspiring Marshal is that it costs 6 mana. So make it cost 5 mana and the card's playable. Justice Rider went from a 3/4 to a 3/5. Doesn't really matter. This card's still too low tempo. I don't think Flash Bombs are too crazy, but we'll see. Kahiri went from 6 mana 4/4 to a 5 mana 3/3. So this isn't the best buff, but also you can't really buff Kahiri too much because you eventually get to a point where people just start playing like 0 mana infinite, like people just go infinite with Kahiri and just start playing these like really insane like 20/20 Kahiris multiple times a turn. And you don't want that happening, so it becomes a much better build around card at 5 mana. I don't really know how much more they could buff this card without it being extremely broken. So who knows? This could be just on the brink of like good. Who knows? Lady of the Blood went from a 2/4 to a 3/4. Doesn't really matter. Lava Lizard gained impact. Doesn't really matter. For those of you that don't know, this is a 2 mana. I think it's like a 2 mana 1/2 that says if you've damaged the enemy Nexus. At the end of turn, transform me, and then so it's a 2 mana 1/2 that transforms into a 3/4 lizard with impact. Doesn't really matter. The issue is you can't really flip it consistently on turn 2, so stat line doesn't matter. And aggro deck stat lines don't matter. You just want abilities. You don't want to play a 2 mana 1/2. And in mid range decks, this doesn't matter. You'd rather just play like if you're in a Bandle City deck that wants a good 2-drop, you just play Stone Stackers. Legion Deserter lost Overwhelm, gained Fearsome. This card was absolutely broken, and now this card's pretty unplayable. Merkwolf Shaman went from a 3/3 to a 2/4, and went from a 5/6 to a 4/6. I don't really understand this change. Forward mid-range units and transformers should be a bit more viable. Yeah, I don't really... They lost a power here of evolution, so I don't really know how that's a buff. Yeah. I don't really understand. This card's pretty unplayable. Alright, keep going. Petricite Broadwing basically has the Fleet Feather Tracker effect, so you still play it on 2 as a 2-mana 3/3, which is pretty solid. So it can still 2-for-1 things pretty easily, but it doesn't enter with Challenger. Now you have to summon an ally to give it Challenger, so it's essentially just Fleet Feather Tracker, which is good because it means that there's not going to be these, like, I win the game moments on turn 2 with, oh, I can't play anything because they could play Petricite and pull my stuff. You can still develop it to Petricite now, and it doesn't just completely, fuck over your tempo. Promising Future, and it still is, like, a really good Challenger unit for any turn after turn 2. Promising Future went from 4 mana to 6 mana. Promising Future is just broken. It's way too cheap. Landmark removal was way too bad. I'm really happy that this went up to 6 mana. Quicksand, instead of... when you target 2 units, instead of giving -2/-0, it gives -1/-0. So it's either give 1 unit -4/-0, that part stayed the same, but now when you target 2 enemies, it only gives -1/-0. Resplendent Stellacorn went from a 4/5 to a 5/6, got a +1/+1 in stats. I mean, 5 mana 5/6 again seems to be the standard that we're going to. Things are kind of getting power crept, so we're going to this 5 mana 5/6. It also heals your Nexus for 3. I don't know how you would ever play this over just the, like, 4 mana 5/4. It's a 4 mana 5/4 Daybreak Lifesteal unit. Like, that's probably just a lot better than Stellacorn, but it's getting there. It's pretty close. Riptide Rex, they reverted it, so it's back to it went from a 6/4 Plunder with 6 barrages to a 7/5 Plunder with 7 barrages. Basically just Riptide Rex revert. Pretty good. Sands of Time creates a Fleeting Century, so hopefully this nerfs Uxtion Infinite. It essentially forces you to not be able to play this on defensive turns, because a lot of times what would happen with Uxtion Infinite is you would go in to kill them, they would Sands of Time you, make it so you don't kill them, pass, and then just, like, go off on you because they have this Century of Time in their hand. Now, the Century of Time, Instant Century is fleeting, so it could present problems for them if their landmark is already at, like, 4 or less. They can't really play it because they're not going to be able to combo off that turn, so that could help. It's not, I don't know. This nerf doesn't seem too big in anything, really. It's just, like, a nice nerf to have. I'm sure it's one of those nerfs that will matter at certain points, but overall it probably won't affect the strength of the card too much. Squeaker went from 1 mana 1/1 to a 2 mana 1/1 to a 2 mana 1/2. Doesn't really matter. Arsenal went from an 8/6 to a 9/7. This is basically to kind of compensate for this. Yeah, it says right here, Scout's removal. It's going to hurt this guy a bit. So to make up for that, we're going to give him +1/+1 in stats. True. Basically, you would only... I don't even know if this card's playable. People would just play this because it had Scout Overwhelm Elusive, and now that you don't have Scout anymore, he's not just going to be like this OTK thing. So, I don't know. The Perfect went from a 1/3 to a 3 mana 2/3. As it's Overwhelm, whenever you play a fast, slow, or a skill, you grant it +1/+0 permanently. Really close to being good. Really close. It might even be good, to be honest with you. And like Jin Annie, it might be there at this point, but it's really close. Trifarian Assessor went back down to 4 mana. Another buff to Freljord midrange, Ash Noxus. This card used to cost 4 mana, was absolutely broken, so they nerfed it to 5 mana. Well, now it's back to 4 mana, so boomers are excited. Zoomers don't know why this is relevant. Vanguard First Blade went from a 2/2 to a 3/3. So essentially you get a 4 mana 5/5. I don't know if that'll matter. Card's just extremely low tempo when you play it. And then again, on turn 4, I'd rather just be playing like Poppy or Bannerman or like 2 units or something, or a Bard. Like, I'd much rather play like almost any unit on turn 4 than this Vanguard First Blade in Demacia. Windfarer Hatchling went from a 4/2 to a 4/3, so it doesn't die to Mystic Shot now. Has a little bit more durability. Seems cool. Yordle Contraption, 4 mana now, so it's 4 mana, destroy a landmark or create 2 random multi-region followers in your hand. Seems nice. Zenith Blade is a huge nerf to Pantheon. Instead of granting Overwhelm permanently, it's give Overwhelm for the round. So it's no longer play my unit on turn 3, open Zenith Blade turn 4, and I'm on like this extremely quick clock. They basically, Zenith Blade is just a finisher. It's still slow speed, and it's just for those like really late game turns when you're like, okay, I need to put Overwhelm my unit, on top of the fact that you can't really get Scout anymore, so you can't have these crazy OTKs. It also is a huge nerf to Lee Sin. You're basically forced to play like, I don't know, not this. Like Lee Sin Uxion's probably the best Lee Sin deck now. Who knows? Yeah, and some Path of Champion updates. I'm not really going to go over those. And then some skit updates, which are pretty neat, but we're also not going to really go over these too much. I'll look at the Nami one because I've been playing a lot of Nami TF, and I think it's really cool. All right, very cool. So, yeah, that's my overall takeaway from this patch is that Ashe Noxus got a lot of buffs in attempt to, you know, revitalize that. It seems like Riot's going back and kind of just like revitalizing a lot of the old archetypes, which I personally agree with. I think, I don't know exactly Riot's design philosophy. I haven't really asked or talked with him, and I'm not a game designer for Riot, but I have looked into game design and kind of studied it a bit. So me personally, what I would like to see is cards get buffed more than cards get nerfed. Because if we start bringing down every single good card and every single good deck and nerf them, the game's just going to get really boring. Because we're going to be playing with a bunch of like babyfied versions of cards, and you're not going to get these really cool moments of like, hey, remember when this card used to be broken and how this card like does cool shit? Well, no card's going to do cool shit because cool shit's going to be too broken, and we're going to have to nerf everything down and down and down. Instead, they just bring these things back up, and every once in a while we'll get something that's like way too broken, but you know, Riot can hotfix that. Like for instance, like this is really good, right? Like I'd rather bring Shin up to Barry, so now Shin's like super playable. Like Callista is now like 50 times more playable. Does that mean Callista is going to be tier 1 and broken? Like no, but she is like 100 times more playable at a 3-4 stat line than she was at a 4-3 stat line. So you know, potential. Same with Aurelia. She's a lot more playable now that you can actually play her early on. You don't have to wait till turns, you know, 5 and 6 plus to play your Aurelia. That's good. Same with Hecarim. It's like, oh, I killed your Hecarim. Like, you did all this work to play a Hecarim, and then I vengeance it, and then now you essentially just, like, did nothing. Like, your champion did absolutely nothing for you. It's, hey, I'm going to play my Hecarim, apply permanent pressure everywhere, so even after you spend time removing my champion, I have an everlasting effect that is going to apply pressure on you. That's really good. Ezreal nerfs, of course, like to make up for things, and then like Ashe, again, to make her more playable, kind of like a bug fix thing. So they're doing a lot of things to bring things up in power level to try to at least make them playable. Or at the very least, it makes them more playable than before by a lot. Like, Barrier Shin is so much more playable than non-Barrier Shin. Callista, I'm not going to go over it again, but like all these cards appear a lot more playable than previous. Like even Avatar of the Tides, going to 6 mana, like 6 HP, what does this affect? This means it's not dying to like Get Excited Mystic Shot. It's not dying to Harpoon. You know, it's not dying to the 6 mana Shadow Isle Drain 5 spell. Like, you know, 6 HP means you can block even a 5-drop if you need to. You know, it's like this is a combo engine, right? So you want your combo engines to have more HP. Same deal with Nagatech. You want your combo engines to have more HP. Like 4 HP is insanely more important than 3 HP. You can name a shit ton of spells that deal 3 damage. There are very few spells that deal 4 damage, right? And even fewer, like, and out of those few spells that even do 4 damage, like a very small percentile of those are actually playable. Same with Camovoran Dragon here. Like 3 HP to 4 HP, huge jump. 2 HP to 1 HP. Like this thing has been a very big, you know, problem in Demacia for a long time. 2 HP to 1 HP, huge difference. Like I said, if they would have just made this a 3-1, it would have been a pretty big nerf. Nerfing it to a 2-1 is a humongous nerf. You know, again, 3 HP to 4 HP makes it so it doesn't die as much. 5 HP to 6 HP, you can now block a 5-drop. It's like, you know, a lot of these cards have pretty big, even if it doesn't make the card actually like broken or good. Like, I think Ashe Noxus is good now? Probably not, because I think it's just too much of a boomer deck, meaning it's just too much behind times. It's too fair. that deck is way too fair for what good decks are doing nowadays. Like, I mean, I have, TF Nami over here producing 10 plus stats a turn on unblockable units. And then you get to play like a 5/6 on turn. Like, you play a 5 mana 5/6 on turn 5. I play that buffs your entire deck +1/+1. I'm going to play a 5 mana 3/3 unblockable, technically only 4 mana because it has a tune. So it's like 4.5 to 4 mana 3/3 unblockable that is also going to produce all of the stats that you just produced, except I'm going to put them directly onto the field, and I'm not going to have to wait to draw them and invest, 5 mana for a unit. I'm going to invest 2 mana in 2 spells and get the same +5/+5 in stats that you're going to get in your next 5 draws. It's just like they're trying to play way too fair of a game plan for things like, mono Viego, where you're just like hyper flipping this Viego thing and then taking control of the board. TF Nami doing broken things. You have like Bard Ari doing broken things. Like, there's so many things that are just too unfair for fair decks to be good. But the point is that it's making them more playable and closer to being good. Like, again, Inspiring Marshal going to a 5/6 is insanely good because it can actually hang with other 5/6s now, or other 6-drops. Does that make this card good? No. Is it more playable? It's 1,000 times more playable. And I think that was the goal. If that was the goal for Riot, then they did a very good job at making a lot of these cards way more playable than they previously were, and then taking away some of the like really powerful cards and just like, meta defining cards. And I'm really happy for that. I'm really excited. So overall takeaways, Ash Nox is still not going to be very good. I think people will try, but it loses to Rulefish too hard, loses to TF Nami too hard, loses to like Ari Bard too hard, Aphelios, PNZ too hard. Like, it just loses to the broken Winding Light elusive decks too much. So probably not going to see too much. Demacia got hit pretty hard, but probably still decent. Petrosite Broadwing nerf hurts a lot, but it doesn't make the card like unplayable. The card is still very solid. It's just not broken. It basically just went from a broken card to a very good card. And against aggro decks, this card's still very easy 2-for-1. Against, if you're ever attacking on odds, it's the exact same, like, okay, you get to block something on turn 2 and then kill something on turn 3 with Challenger after you play a unit. So still very solid. Thralls is a non-existent deck. Thralls got hit. I think it was like 6 total nerfs. Promising Future got nerfed. Sands of Time got nerfed. That's 2. And then we got 1, 2, 3. We got 3 more landmark removal buffs. So that's 5 total nerfs coming in for Thralls here. So Thralls is pretty non-existent right now because of the amount of landmark that got buffed and the actual cards getting nerfed in Thralls being this promising future. So very cool. I hated Thralls anyway, so cool for me. I'm happy. And yeah, outside of that, and Pantheon's basically dead. So Pantheon's dead. Thralls is dead. Ash Nox has a lot more potential than it previously had, but probably still isn't enough. But who knows? Probably still isn't enough. And Hecarim, it has a lot of potential. So that's kind of my takeaways from the patch. I'm super excited for it. I'm really concerned at the fact that not only did they not nerf TF Nami, which is the best deck in the game, but they literally directly buffed TF Nami. Because the deck already runs 3 Shadow Isle Telstones, and they just buffed Crumble, which was in Shadow Isle Telstones, and you actually played it. You picked Crumble quite a lot. It's easily like the second most picked option in Telstones. The first pick being Mark of the Isles to go for lethal in good trades, but you would easily pick Crumble to just be like, oh, that's a cool Viego you have there. Boop, kill it. Like, oh, that's a cool Hydravine you have there. Boop, kill it. Like, oh, I'm in the mirror match and you have a Nami. Boop, kill it. So that was already good, but then now they buffed it to 4 mana, so they directly buffed TF Nami. I'm pretty concerned about that. Ari Bard also was not really touched. So Ari Bard didn't get nerfed. Aphelios Winding Light didn't get nerfed. Aphelios Winding Light didn't get nerfed, and TF Nami didn't get nerfed.
at the current moment, before, you know, the meta's had time to settle or new cards get picked or new decks be made, anything like that, those are my top 3 decks in the meta right now. Is Aphelios, PNZ, Winding Light. It's essentially just discard aggro, Ari Bard, and then TF Nami. So 3 extremely strong decks, didn't get touched a single bit. That's my go-to tournament lineup. That's my go-to top 3 decks in the meta. So we'll see how things shake up. I'll be back next Monday with a Meta Monday, giving you the overall stats of this patch. So I'm able to filter through this patch only, tell you like what's kind of been doing well, if any new thing has popped up, stuff like that. So make sure to, again, subscribe, click that bell icon so you guys get notification when I post my video on Monday, telling you all the new stats and new decks and new win rates. Because if you remember, I have a pretty good track record with telling you guys about broken decks before they become super popular. Like, for instance, like the Noxus Viego deck, I was able to tell you guys, hey, like I said, let's look at the highest winning decks on this patch, right when the patch dropped. And I said, oh, this like random pile of Noxus, Shadow Isle, like Viego pile of cards with a 1 of Katarina and this, what was it? The Legion Deserter card. Like, this has the highest win rate in the game. Let me check this deck out. The deck was absolutely broken. And now, I mean, it got nerfed. So if you want to see a deck like that again, make sure to tune in Monday and see if there's one like that. So you get the first drop on any new broken shit. So that's going to be for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next video.